Hi, so I'm Cagne. I'm actually going to be talking about something very similar to Samantha's, which is human element in the climate change. In the past 2 decades, global warming and climate change have been a very heated issue. Whether we want to believe it or not, the change is very real. At 389 parts per million, carbon dioxide levels are higher than ever, parts per million being another way of expressing the dilute concentration in a substance. Certain areas in the United States continue to break record highs and lows in temperature. Earthquakes, tropical storms, and tornadoes are also at all-time highs. So what do we suppose is the cause for these changes? Sure, there are many natural causes, but many point the finger at humans, which are the most resource-using species on the planet. From our factories, our appliances, different factories, we really do consume these resources and we burn right through them. So what is the connection between the global and climate change and human resource? This takes me to my main claim, which is human activity is a major consequential factor in the global climate change. For my first supporting claim, Earth's global temperature has increased by 1 to 1.4 degrees Fahrenheit from human-produced carbon dioxide since the 20th century. Well, some of you might ask, how do you know that it's human-produced? Well, because the majority of this carbon dioxide found is actually have a specific isotope that results from fossil fuel combustion. Well, where does the fossil fuels come from? Our vehicles, different other forms of transportation, and our appliances that we use. So, of course, it is human-produced because us humans use those resources. According to climatechangeprocon.org, scientists state that this heating is taking place in our troposphere and not our stratosphere. Our troposphere is the upper part of our, the lower part of our atmosphere, which is closer to the surface, and stratosphere is the upper atmosphere, which is currently cooling. Researchers claim that the sun is actually causing all of this heat and all this global warming. Well, actually, that could be refuted because if that were so, the stratosphere would actually be heating. Well, the stratosphere is currently cooling, so this is proving that it's more of a surface matter. When the collection of carbon dioxide in the troposphere increases, the water vapor humidity increases as well. This causes a trapping of radiation and actually builds a thicker blanket in our lower atmosphere, and this produces more heat. For my second claim, or my second supporting claim, when it comes to our precipitation, also known as our hydraulic system, its climate is also increasing from our carbon dioxide warming. Obviously, the warmer the temperature, the more evaporation occurs. More evaporation equals more rainfall. Well, unfortunately, with these warmer temperatures, they prevent the rainfall from getting cold enough to become snow, which harms our mountain areas. For my final claim, lastly, the rapid increase in carbon dioxide is also changing the climates of the ocean. The ocean contains carbon sinks that can only absorb 50% of this carbon dioxide and the rest accumulates in the air. Carbon sinks are natural carbon collecting chemical and vegetation reservoirs on the ocean floors. Even though these carbon sinks can only absorb 50%, humans have actually pushed these sinks to their limits. So this causes an increase in our carbon dioxide, which also leads to an increase in acidity levels in the ocean. And the more acid in the ocean, the higher the temperatures is of our oceans. With these increasing sea temperatures comes the ice caps melting. The ice caps in the Arctic Sea are decreasing by 9% every decade. Thus, when these ice caps melt, we are presented with a rise in global sea level, like the 8-inch rise that we have today. So you can see that this is a trickle-down effect. All of these changes in air, land, and sea are connected with our increased carbon dioxide emissions. So to say that we aren't substantial players in this global change of climate, we would be lying to ourselves. So go green. Thank you.
Right, well, you have a clear statement of what the claim is at the beginning of the speech. I don't think that you lay out the secondary points very clearly, and in fact, one of the problems with the secondary points is they typically are not claims or declarative sentences, rather they're pieces of data that you're going to be making inferences from, and so you're using the evidence as the supporting structure instead of the argument, and that gets a little bit confusing. Often there's also an assumption that any information you present is accurate. I didn't hear a source citation for the vast majority of the data that you present. You talked about the carbon sinks, you talked about the decline in the ice caps, you talked about a rise in the oceans, you mentioned changes in the frequency of hurricanes, not earthquakes, but hurricanes, tornadoes, snowpack, and I didn't hear any authorities being quoted on that. There was one source that kind of explained a basic concept that you cited early on, and it sounds like it's a mega site collecting all kinds of data as opposed to a particular authority that we can give credibility to, and that seems a little bit problematic when it comes to proving these claims. This very similar to what I said about the previous speaker. There seems to be kind of a primer here on what's going on with the global temperature without necessarily being able to attribute it specifically to human activity. I'll give you a good example of one of those things that you just take as a given. You say, well, the stratosphere would be cooling or would be heating up also. I'm going, why? Why do I mean, that's a theory, I guess. I don't know if it's your theory or somebody else's theory, but I'm not sure that that's the case. I'm not sure that that's how radiation works. I'm not sure that's how the UV that changes the temperature of the planet affects the stratosphere as opposed to the troposphere. But you just kind of toss it off as if it's a truism, and I think that that's the place where you need more of this kind of expert testimony or some factual data that's going on these points. So the explanation of the theories is okay. The proof on the theories, I think, is a little bit underwhelming. Thank you.